Hi all. In this video, I am going to explain you about dynamic website deployment using Azure Web App plus Cosmos DB. So when I mean dynamic website means it images, data, those informations will not be static. It will be keep on changing where users will give the input and it is going to store the data in database, and then using that data you can fetch and you can update those operation you can make it. So generally those kinds of website we will call it as a dynamic website. So I have already developed a code using a Flask application. Using a Flask stack, I have created simple website which is having a index.html where usually users will go and give their informations, and once you click on submit, it is going to store the data in database, and admin dashboard is there on other end where you can see the data. So whenever there users gives the information and click on submit, the data will store in database, and the admin dashboard person can view that data. That is the website, simple website we are having. And along with this we also have a requirement.txt. So when you are deploying any website on a Azure web app, right, usually it's mandatory to have a requirements.txt file in your code base, and you need to mention which all the stacks you have used here, what is the required stack you have used, that you usually need to give the version and name of the package. So when you are doing the deployment, web app will automatically take care of installing these packages, so you manually don't need to give these informations, or you don't manually don't need to go inside the machine, and you don't need to install a package because it's a pass service, so it will automatically manage. That's the reason we always needs to provide a requirement.txt. So once it is ready, main thing is here we have a app.py main Python file where we have called login HTML, index HTML, admin dashboard HTML, we have called it, and all the insert, update, and delete operations, those kind of operation we have in performed here. And we need to provide a Mongo client here. So generally when it comes to database, we have a lot of databases available like SQL, NoSQL, and within a SQL database for PostgreSQL, and many databases we are having, and NoSQL also we have a Mongo, Cassandra, those databases we are having it. We can use anything, but here in this project I have used a Mongo client. That means NoSQL Mongo database I have used it here. So for that service to be deployed, we need to create those services in Azure portal, right? So here is the Azure portal. I will just use Azure web app. I will create it. So when you are creating web app means it's a PaaS service you are going to create. You don't need to manage it manually, or it's not like a virtual machines. You just provision the resource and you will deploy the website, and you don't need to maintain a it's not like an infrastructure as a service. You don't need to maintain an infrastructure. So I will choose resource group as a demo RG2 which I created for this demo, and I will give a name as a dynamic website. And my code using this website, dynamic website.azurewebsite.net, I will be able to access the URL. And I will just give it publisher as the code itself, and I don't have any Docker container but you usually you can upload create a Docker image and place it in Azure container in registry or in a third party, and you can use that image for the deployment. That option is also available in a web app. And if you have a static website, since here it is a dynamic website, I need to choose either of these. If your code is static and static website is there, generally you can go with the static web app. And we have a runtime stack, and for the particular Flask application I used a Python stack also. On top of Python it is running, so I need to choose Python 3.12, which is the latest version available. And coming to operating system, I always is the best choice to go with the Linux based operating system. And we have a lot of regions available within Azure, and I will just choose the East US. And you can just choose like which is the nearest location, or who end users are located in which nearest places. Based on that you can choose the region here. And I will just choose a pricing tier as a free tier, and I'll choose Linux plan. This is going to create automatically. And because based on requirement we have to choose a plan here. P3 V3 P3 V2, those premium plans are available. Basic B1 B2 B3 are available, but this, since it is a demo video, so I will just choose a free of cost plan here. And then I will keep database deployment everything as a default, and even I will expose this to public access. Enable I will give it because the application URL needs to be accessed in the public network. And I will just keep everything default, and I will just click on create. Hmm. Usually creation of the web app will take around 10 to 15 seconds, but before that it needs to validate, and once it is validated it will show content here, and we can just click on create. So the it will take a initializing a deployment, it will start, and it will take hardly 15 to 20 seconds for creation of web app. On other end, since it is creating, I will go to cosmos db, and we will create a one cosmos db account also first. So when you click on create Azure Cosmos DB, we have a multiple options available here. Cassandra, Table, Gremlin, PostgreSQL, and Mongo we are having. These are the options available in NoSQL database. So I will choose a Mongo database because that configurations I have used in my Flask, but you can use any NoSQL or SQL you can use, and you can configure that in your Flask applications. And when you choose a MongoDB, we have a vCore based and RU based model we are having. Both serve different purpose, but the at the end use case is same only. But one, if you choose a vCore based, it will be running on a 2 week or 4 week or machines. It will be running the our Mongo database. If you choose a RU based, then the charge will be going to update based on your RU consumption. If you perform one insert operation, then it will charge some 200 RUs, 300 like that. It will be charging, and you can configure how much RUs you want per second. You can configure that. So RU based is the best approach because how much RUs you are going to consume at that point, you are going to charge for that only that cost. So that I feel RU consumption based model is the best option for no SQL MongoDB. But again, it depends, like your request will be always continuous, and keep on coming. The request will be keep on coming means you can go with the vCore model also. And I will just give database name as a dynamic DB, and I will choose location as East US is not available in my, for the choose, and I will just go with the Central US. And I will choose keep the capacity mode provision throughput itself, and by default we can apply free tier also. Here first 1000 RUs and 25 GB storage is free of cost. So you can generally use this options you can use it. And then we have a default configuration. I will keep it global distribution for geo redundancy. If you want to keep the data in multiple geolocation, you can keep it geo redundancy. And networking, we keep your database in a private network or the private endpoint enabled, or you can choose selected network at least. That is the best options you can choose, because if you want database is where will usually it will be having a sensitive information, you need to keep those data secured. That's the reason enabling a private endpoint and allowing only authorized services to communicate, that is the best option always to keep your data secured. And if any users temporarily needs to connect to a database, then you can add your IP address to that point alone to access a database. That is the best option. Since it is a demo video, I am keeping it as a all network. And you can have a backup policy also enabled for your databases. Generally for the production and all, it is always best practice to have a 30 days of databases continuous backup for any failure. And when it comes to database policies, we have a periodic and continuous backup. Periodic backup is usually I don't recommend, because when you take up set up a periodic backup, you can just set up a intro all and a retention and how much copies you want to retain. But whenever you want to recover this database, right, generally you will not have an option to recover by yourself. You need to raise it and contact to the Microsoft, and they will restore your database. And best option is continuous backup, I say, because it will be take one full backup at once, and on top of that it will keep on updating a transactional backup, and it will happen at every seconds, every minute. The backup will be keep on happening, and it will update the transaction backups on top of the actual backup. And if it's a development, you can just go with the 7 days of continuous backup, and if it is a production and all, you can go with the 30 days of backup minimum. And when you choose a continuous backup with the 7 days, right, it's generally available for a free of cost. You don't need to pay for any money. And rest of the encryption you can enable, and that you can just add a tags if you want to tag some cost or activities, and then you can click on create. So it will just validate and it will create the Mongo database. But generally creation of Mongo database will take you at least some 1 to 2 minutes for the creation. So you can just see here deployment details. It will start showing like what exactly it is happening, and you can just monitor here. But till this time get created, we will just navigate to web app. So you can see here web app is already created. So you can just see here default domain got allocated. Using this we can access our website at the end. And you can just see here we have a deployment setter, and settings we are having, and performance, app service plan. These are the options available within a web app. I will come to a deployment at the end. We have a settings here. Under settings we have a environment variable, and if you want to pass any values, right, in a key value pair, you can just declare the values here, and these values we can use it in our app. And if the app is going to connect to any storage account and all, right, usually you can just set up that connection string and or even key vault. Those settings you can add it in a environment variable sections. And we have a identity option here. Yeah, if you want to enable system assigned or user assigned identities, right, to authenticate as a identity to other Azure services, generally you can create the these, and you can assign the permissions and roles, necessary roles you have to assign it. And we have a custom domain. Generally when you have deployed the any website or any application within a web app, right, you need to it will be generally allocated default domain, that is azure website.net. It will be allocated. On top of that, if you want to access with your custom domain, right, like sample.com or sample.in, like that, if you want to access any custom domain, then you can configure those also within web app, and you can just create a DNS zone. For the public DNS zone you have to create it and assign it. And we have a networking section, which is just show like a public network access allowed, and what are the configure vnet we have added, those things it will be showing. And we have a scale up scale out options, which is major and important topic in Azure web app, because I have just deployed with a free tier which is not going to charge anything. But when your application is live and generally in a production, right, we get a lot of user request in a particular minute, right, that time the load might be high. So basic b1 is not going to enough, then you can scale up to b2 or b3 series based on a load, you can do that. And whenever there is no load, right, usually like at night time there is no load, and morning time usually the high load will be there, then that scale up scale out options here are available. So you can utilize this based on a requirement. You can just use which one is best suits for your application. You can choose that. Basic to standard premium, all these options are available in a Azure web app. And we have a Azure app service plan here. Generally when web app is nothing, it will be just web applications running on top of one app service plan. App service plan is the one Linux or Windows based operating system it will be using in a backend. And we have also deployment tools and APIs. If generally if you want to connect to your web app to backends, right, with the you want to manage with the particular API management service, then you can link create a API management and you can link those. And we have monitoring tools also here generally, and the best part of this monitoring is app service log. So what log stream. So what are the actions you are doing, right? Connected to a connection, deployment of the service and all those logs you can see in a live here. So that is the advantage of web app in a log stream option. So I will go back to Azure Cosmos DB and our database got created, and you can just see a dynamic DB go here. And we need to create, so we have only created a Cosmos DB account. We need to create also a database. We have just created an account here. We need to create a database and collections. So I need to give a name here, and I have already referred a user data as a database name, so I will use the same thing here as a database name. And then I will choose user case as a collection name, so I will give that as a collection name here. And in database max arrays, I will it is configured 1000 arrays. Minimum value is for any database you have to set minimum is 400, and maximum is 10,000, 20,000 is also available. You can choose that one based on your requirement. And we need to give the unshared or shared database. You can choose it, so you will get some spaces allocated for your databases. And that's it. You just click on OK. It will start creating a database, and generally for creating it alone it will take 10 to 20 seconds. We can just wait for that time. And just when I move to quick start here, we will be able to see here primary connection string. So this connection string we need to use for the setting up within a Flask applications. So I just copied that, and we need to just paste it here, so it will use this for as a database for our Flask application. And I will just click on commit changes, so it will be saving. And then our setup is done here, and our collection is also, it will be ready. And you can just see here we don't have uh, database only created. We need to wait for collection to be created. It will just create, so we can just go and connect to our application here. So I am back here at the Azure web app. So I will just go to a deployment center, and here we need to connect our code base. So our code base is exist in GitHub. So we have a for CI/CD enable, we have a GitHub, Bitbucket, Azure Repos. All these options are available. Most of the users, when their infrastructure is within Azure, they will be choosing Azure Repos. But I don't have Azure DevOps, Azure Repos. I don't, since I don't have it, I'll be using a GitHub here. And organization we need to choose, and I will choose the organization, and I need to pick up repository which is demo Cosmos, and my code is in a main branch, so I will pick it as a main branch. And we need to authenticate with some identity, so I will just choose one of the existing identity to authenticate it. So using this, what it is going to do is, when I click on save, right, it is going to create one pipeline, one workflow. It is going to create in a GitHub. Using that, it will enable a CI/CD enable. It will do so in when next time I do any changes in a code base, right, automatically it will create a workflow, and it will start executing the new code base. So we don't need to, every time we don't need to trigger a pipeline manually. So automatically it is, since it is going to create one workflow, it is going to make it complete automations. So I will just show you here, we don't have any actions for now, but when I click on save, it will start creating a one workflow. So if you just go here and refresh, right, after 10 seconds usually, you can just see here new workflow will be get created. And when the workflow deployment got started, you can just monitor the logs here, like what is happening in a backend. Generally, like it will be in going set up the infrastructure, and then start it installing all the packages for whatever we listed in a requirement.txt. All those it will start in a backend. So still it is not started, not started. I'll just keep on refresh. It will start in a few seconds. And here also it will start showing a logs. So here I can see the setting up deployment is ready. So in just for a few seconds, it will start doing creating actions. Still not started, but yeah, you can see here the workflow got created, and build and deploy will be started within this workflow. So build is also done and deployment it is started. So usually deployment will take at least 4 to 5 minutes for the entire deployment. So till the deployment complete, I will also show you options available within Cosmos DB, that is MongoDB setup. So we have a quick start here. From here we have copied our primary connection string, and we have multiple platform here, .NET Code and Node.js, MongoDB Shell, Java. Using which platform you are going to connect to MongoDB, based on that you can use connection string. We have feature tag here, and we have main thing is about point in time restore, that is backup. When we enable a backup, right, we can restore at particular time. We can just choose, so since we have enabled with a continuous backup with the 7 days, we can just choose a database here, and we can just mention at what particular time we need to restore it. So on top of that, it will just start restoring at that particular selected time. And I mentioned that about networking, we have a public network, private access, that is private endpoint available. Based on our needs, we need to enable either public network or private access. We need to choose it wisely. And again, we have identity here. We can use the system assigned user assigned identities to authenticate. And we have a scaling options. So we have enabled with the 500 or for 1000 RUs we have configured it for now, but we can scale it to 20,000, 30,000 also. Based on our needs, we need to set up that. And you can just see here 1000 RUs are configured, even up to 1 lakh also. We are 10 lakh also RUs we can configure it. That is a flexibility we are having. And we have auto scale and manual options where throughputs we are having it here. When you set up auto scale, right, it will scale from 400 to 1000 or 400 to 10,000. That scale up, automatic scale up scale down, it will happen. So whenever there is a huge request is coming, it will scale up, and once the request is done, it will scale down to 400. That is the best option we are having in a MongoDB, or even multiple almost all NoSQL database. Here it is giving options. When you set it to manual, it is always fixed, and 1000 RUs it is going to charge. Even if your consumption is not that much also, you need to pay for 1000 RUs. So that is option is also available. You can choose which one is necessary for you. And then we are having a monitoring here, and within a monitoring, major thing is about insights. So you can just choose your time range, and you can monitor about your database, like what is the throughput, what are the requests are happened in last 4 hours or selected time period. You can just choose see like how much are you consumed, how much failed requests are happened, and what is the storage it is consumed, and availability. Those things you can look into all the dashboards. And if you have enabled the diagnostic settings, right, that logs also, you can just go to the log and resource space, and you can see the like mongo request and data plan, all these diagnostics you can data you can just monitor from a log and resource space. And so our deployment is still happening. We need to wait for it. The deployment is ready, and you can just see. We'll navigate to web app, and you can just see here our URL is available. And I'll just open now one incognito, and we should be able to see a screen here. So we are able to access the dynamic website .azure that is the default domain which Azure gives us to access the our application. Is available, and you can also just go here, and you can just navigate here, and you can see the documents are empty here. But you can just start typing here some random text like test, and 0 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9. I will just give random, and I'll use email address and just submit and test data. I'll click on submit, and the user form submitted successfully. And now I will navigate to admin portal, and I will just click on login, and you should be able to see the data here. And when you just navigate to here also, when you click on here refresh, that data will be get updated here. So the document will be created. Generally you can just see here document created, and you can see the data also here. And same way, if you upload any data here, so you can see here status as active, right? So I will mark it as a action result, and I will just update, and here it is updated. And even in database also, if you refresh it, it will change the status to result. That is about setup. So demo this is the demo about how to set up a dynamic website you and host in a Azure web app and use plus Cosmos DB. So that's about setting up Azure web app and MongoDB and deploying a dynamic website in Azure. And thank you for watching the video.